Welcome to your middle of the week, Midnight's Edge in the morning. I'm Tom Connors. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And with us, as always, is the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, good morning if you're in the US, and good afternoon, evening if you are anywhere else.
And with us is a very special guest, once again, filmmaker Tom Konkle. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on here. And good morning and waking up no matter where you are. I hope you're waking up right about now.
I'm trying.
Yeah, me too. Some places it's daylight. We were just saying, sometimes the clock can affect you by an hour. It's amazing how much an hour makes a difference.
No kidding, yes. We got a couple weeks here before it happens in the U.S., but unfortunately, Andre's dealing with it already, so... Yeah, apologize for the last couple shows being a bit behind schedule, but we're trying to adjust, I guess is the best. Best way.
Yes, we are trying to adjust to adjusting times. And personally, yes. I'm opposed to the whole daylight savings thing in principle. I saw that there was absolutely a need for it before electrical light and when everyone were farmers, or better yet, peasants. But I don't think the need is quite there in this day and age, especially not when it's not coordinated to be at the same time everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty loud.
I agree. I think this belongs in the celebration of Leech's Day. I think we need to retire this along with the Bronze Age stuff that we celebrate. I don't understand now that we have lights on tractors. I don't see the justification of having daylight savings time. It's a very strange old tradition. It's basically the appendix of time.
I like that analogy. And also joining us this morning, probably for a short bit, Mr. Rob Shlomo.
Yeah, hey, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, Thanks. I have an unwelcome guest, actually. I have a squirrel in my garage, so I have to go get a trap.
I can send you Sadie.
Oh, that'll work.
But we want to say good morning to all of you out there in the chat. We've got some regulars filing in here. Thank you so much. Tree Rock Creations, Zach Rott, welcome, welcome. JC, Norm DePlum, Guy Endor, welcome this morning. Mr. Clown. And we lost Andre.
It's in my presence.
He went back to sleep.
I think so. Casperius is here, of course. Welcome, Tina Bohan. Welcome, everybody. There he is. I knew he'd be right back. Oh, so Andre, welcome back.
Thank you. Just dealing with daylight savings times and all surrounding issues related. Tom, hey Rob.
Hey, what's up, Andre?
How long have you been gone?
Good to have you back. You had a little internet narcolepsy.
Yeah. And come Saturday or Sunday, we're gonna be cursing, and when it's dark out in the morning, we're gonna be cursing the Germans.
I just looked it up,
coal.
and we got another week of this crap, Rob.
Yeah, but yeah.
It doesn't curse you
really?
March 8th.
I did think. I thought it was
March? Too, but I just looked it up, unless where I looked it up was wrong.
Yeah, curse the Germans for wanting to stay.
It's got to be November. Yeah. I think if you got March, you got the wrong time change because it would be November. It would be in November.
Yeah, it said November. Oh, maybe let me look. I thought it said November 8th.
I think it's November 1st or November something like that.
You are right.
I have to get up so early when I do a shoot.
March 8th
sometimes I feel like I'm waking.
Yeah, speaking
March 8th
of,
is where we set it forward. Yeah,
of getting up to do a shoot. That brings us a little bit to the topics of today, because today we will first be discussing what you see in the thumbnail, namely that a small little low-budget, comparatively low-budget movie like Borat just beat the hell out of Mulan, and Spider-Man 3 is back filming again, even in this environment. And it's not the only thing, because Tom Konkle also has done some filming, which we will get back to. And after that, we're going to have a discussion about a very, very famous filmmaker and whether this filmmaker is all he's cracked up to be. Well, that should be very interesting, so stay tuned for that. But for right now, the Borat sequels, the subsequent movie film was, according to Amazon, quite successful and had more viewers than Mulan apparently did for Disney Plus, although there's some uncertainty in the numbers, seeing as none of them kind of like release the numbers that much, do they? So they're not that transparent, either Amazon or Disney
No, they're not
Plus.
transparent at all. Yeah, you're very right.
But
Well, it's
if
also
we are to accept these numbers, what's your thoughts on them?
Well, for me, you know what? Everyone needs a laugh right now with everything that's going on. So the genre makes complete sense. That a scrappy little genre film that, frankly, is very much of its time. You know, it's almost like a news satire in many ways. With everything going on, it has built-in promotion because it's the comedy's on us, and it's happening. But the other thing that's kind of interesting about it is it shows yet again you cannot predict with this model, this streaming business model, you cannot predict the scale or size of a film and how it's going to do. It has completely disrupted the business model. I was reminded of an article that came out in 2013. I don't know if you guys remember, but they were talking with Spielberg and Lucas, of all people, that said that eventually the movie business is going to implode, they said, and it might retreat to the living room. And I think we're witnessing that happen all of these years later. I don't know if you remember that coming out.
I do remember.
It came out in... You do, yeah.
I do. And I remember it very
Borat...
well. They said this in the 90s, because I remember at the time, and I was thinking back to this quote. I was thinking it in the mid-2000s. I was thinking of it after the Avengers. I was thinking on this quote after Avengers Infinity War. And I always compared it with a famous quote from Lord Kelvin, who invented the Kelvin scale. That's a good thing that he did. But the bad prediction he made was that absolutely everything that has been invented or that can possibly be invented is invented. We are right now living at the pinnacle of humanity. There is no way forward. There is nothing more we can do. This is the peak of civilization. He said this in like the 1830s or something. So I was like thinking that's like a very typical thing, that no matter how brilliant you may be, you can have some things that you are simply wrong about. It's like the same thing with Newton. He made like Newtonian physics, which still works, although Einstein made it a little bit better. But still, he spent his life pursuing alchemy. Like, history doesn't say too much about that, but still that happened. So he was wrong about that. True. And this is kind of like what I was thinking with the Spielberg and Lucas, that okay, this is their thing like that. That okay, they were wrong. But I just hadn't waited long enough, because here we are.
Here we are. And also, let's look at this also analytically. What does this mean when they say it's drawn viewers? This model means that these are usually streaming services you've already subscribed to. So when we say we've brought a lot of viewers to a particular film, it doesn't necessarily move the needle on profit. What it means is, if you say you bought tickets to AMC and you belong to AMC and you paid AMC $20 every month, and you show up for some movies but you don't for the others, you're still paying the $20, but you don't make an additional $20 when you're showing up to watch that particular movie. What's happening with the streaming services, they're getting some more subscribers to watch something, but the vast majority of the people that are watching it already subscribe, and you can't expand that subscriber base infinitely. So the idea of doing a reasonably priced film that your subscribers already support, if you already have, let's say, let's throw a number out, say you have 50 million subscribers and you know that they're paying a certain amount of money. Well, right there, you know what you need to spend to make a movie. you're going to add a certain number of subscribers. But this model is nothing like the idea that if you make something, people that don't normally go see your movie are going to show up and buy a ticket like they would at a movie theater. No, some people will subscribe and drop, the minute they watch it. It is a completely different way of thinking about, great, I had a huge opening of my movie. Were those people already subscribed to Amazon, or are they new people to Amazon? Because if they're not new, they didn't actually make more money. They just kept the people they already have paying money. So the movie didn't really profit anything. It just kept people paying the same amount of money they normally pay.
Andre, I'm just reminded of back when you said that quote about Lord Kelvin. When I was going to university, I actually had academics and people in business saying, laughing when I was talking about the internet. And this is in the mid '90s. They were literally, internet, beep beep beep. I'm like, oh, you watch. No, I swear to God, they scoffed at the idea of this thing being taking on a life of its own. But that shows you what they know. But yeah, Tom, there's a definite ceiling to all of this. And this, hey, listen, the whole idea is that they're scrambling to catch it. Anyone who's not riding the wave is usually swept up by it. Now they're going to be scrambling to try and fully monetize the streaming. I think this caught everybody off guard. The movie industry, nobody ever looks ahead, I
don't know if it caught them off guard so much as this is one of those things that goes with what we were saying, though, as far as Borat is the perfect type of vehicle for a streaming launch.
That's my point.
It's fairly low budget. It's a comedy. It's something everybody can kind of grab onto. Whereas, a superhero movie is going to do gigantic numbers, but it's too expensive to make for a streaming service, But at the same time,
it's my whole thing. Yeah. I argue
exactly.
that the movies are looking more like television, and television is looking more like movies. Mm-hmm. And Borat is the perfect film to come out. Now, if it draws 1.6 million viewers in the opening, that's great. But those aren't new tickets that each person's buying to that particular film. The vast majority of those people were on that platform. So as that number drops off, it's either adding new subscribers, which may or may not stay, or they're just people that are already on the service that haven't gotten to the movie yet, because now there's no sense of urgency to a movie. If I want to see Borat, I can watch it now or 6 months from now. It makes absolutely no difference.
Yeah, the water cooler.
So the idea of it being, the water cooler effect, but also the event effect is gone. It's great that I'm glad there's more content. I'm glad there's a comedy, but it also isn't a thing. It's not like, oh, Borat opened this weekend. We all went to go see it. We had a good laugh. No, I watched it. Then, you'll watch it next Saturday, and you'll watch it. And of course, you've got 5-6 different streaming companies that are all screaming for our subscriber base, and that can't be sustained either.
The immediacy. There's no immediacy.
Well, and going back to your point, Tom, is I highly doubt Borat is the kind of movie that's going to bring in new subscribers. I mean, sure, they maybe gained a couple, but I doubt it was any, there's any metrical, way of weighing how many people actually really did join up just for Borat.
But I can tell what it does, though, because as Konkle said, what a movie like Borat does is that something like Amazon, it needs new content absolutely all the time.
Right.
Not just to attract new subscribers, but to keep the existing ones subscribed. Otherwise, they're going to ditch it. If they've seen everything they felt that they need to see, why stay? They need something new constantly. And Borat, in that sense, is good because it's something that's relevant right now. You can see it anytime, but most people are going to see it now in the next month. Given the theme of the movie, they probably hope everyone's going to see it in the next week. But after that, like, it's only newsworthy for a little while, and when it's no longer newsworthy, they're going to have something else that's newsworthy to keep people attracted.
That's
but
right.
The beauty with this is that this is something that cost, I don't know the exact budget of it, but it was next to nothing in the bigger scheme of things. And I agree with you, Konkle. This is the future. We're going to get more content like this, and the companies that have the huge, big budget movies in the pipeline. We have a mini documentary coming out about this tomorrow, actually.
Well, yeah, because Amazon's been a sleeping monster in this whole thing for a while. Everybody kind of keeps forgetting. I mean, we haven't.
Right.
But like when people bring up like the streaming wars and stuff, Amazon and HBO are always overlooked, and people forget the sleeping monster that Amazon was, because, oh yeah, everybody was into Netflix and crap, but then they finally realized, oh, I've got Amazon Prime for my shipping. I didn't realize I could watch movies on here too. I mean,
absolutely.
There was a lot of people who just finally realized that in the last year or so. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a boon for indie filmmakers. Like my movies are on Amazon, and I would say that's the primary place where somebody would see, like, Trouble Is My Business. It's the only place I could get to take it in black and white. And, for Amazon, it's a loss leader to have the movies, because, they make $10 billion on Prime Day, and then they go, oh, hey, let's just buy Coming to America too. How much do you want? I'll write you a check. And they just write a check. Which actually leads to another interesting point. When we say something opens big on Amazon, it doesn't mean the filmmakers make anything. The only thing that you make, like Borat, whether Borat was a huge success or Borat bombed, the only thing the filmmakers saw was the licensing fee to Amazon. So the fact that Borat opens huge and makes 1.6 million, we have to keep this in mind. That is not ticket sales that are adding money to whatever it was. Like before, you would sell a movie and license it to companies that would then put it in theaters, and then if it was a knockout hit, if you made $200 million, $300 million in the box office, if you had participation, you'd get that money. With Borat, I'm sure they made a deal where maybe they put it up, they licensed it for $40 million, for an exclusive on Amazon. And then if it opens huge, you don't see any more money. If it doesn't open at all, you made $40 million. But it's baseline. There's no reward. You don't get another, unless you make some super special deal. This thing could open and every person on the earth could watch it. And me as the Borat producer, I wouldn't see an extra dime from what I was paid. And that's different too.
You're paid.
It's hugely different.
Well, and
every movie is up front now.
And you brought up Coming to America.
That's all you make.
And that's the same thing that happened there. Is Paramount looked at it. They realized, you know what? Theaters are probably not going to be open this December. We got this offer from Amazon for $125 million. I bet the movie cost $80 million to make. As soon as Eddie Murphy signed off on it, it was a deal for them. But now you have Bond, on the other hand, where MGM wanted $600 million fucking dollars for this movie,
right?
Which is, it goes right to the point that I've been saying all this time, is these streaming services cannot sustain the kind of money that movies like Bond and Star Wars and Marvel need to make. So we're gonna have to hit a
I make movies. I tell you,
I guarantee you're absolutely right, Tom. You can't. The reason they want $600 million is because that's what it would have made if it had played in theaters. Mm-hmm. And that's the only money they'll ever, ever, ever see if it goes on a streaming service. It is the baseline. It's the socialism of movie finance. You will never see, no matter how good or bad it is, that's what they will see. So they're asking for $600 million because some computer somewhere predicted that's what it would make. But what streaming service could have 10 movies come out where they pay $600 million and their subscriber base is only generating $400 million or $450 million a year in subscribers? They can't sustain it. And right. I find it fascinating. As an indie guy, I'm over the moon. Like, if I can license one of my little movies to some platform or whatever, I just go, that's it. I'm never going to see another dime. You get paid for a period of time. Like, you can take it for 2 years, and I never see another dime, no matter right. how big it is or how little it is. Well, but if you made a $150 million film or $200 million film, some streaming service would have to guarantee me I would make at least that up front,
because I think I would never see another dime off of that.
And that's exactly
where
what
you
it is.
have a problem.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I mean, how do you ever have a summer blockbuster? Yeah.
Well, and
you can't have a surprise blockbuster. You can't, because if I turned in Jaws and it was a $7 million film, this is just in theory. Let's say I turn it in and it's a runaway hit, 50 million people. Well, I only sold it to Amazon for $8 million. So is it a big summer blockbuster? Does it move my ball forward as a production company? No, because I actually lost money every time a subscriber sees it that wasn't factored into my licensing fee. They saw my movie for free. For me, I got nothing.
Right. And I'm sure the deal differs depending on the film, but yeah, like in most cases like this and with Coming to America, as far as we know, they're buying the film flat out. Like
exactly, but it doesn't predict those unexpected things that were the movies that we love. If this was 1970s and I had Halloween and you'd never seen a slasher movie, do you really think I could walk into a company like Apple Plus or Amazon and go, this movie's going to make $60 million. I want $60 million to license Halloween to you? No, it wouldn't happen. They'd be like, okay, we'll give you 20,000. It doesn't have big stars. We'll take it. And then the movie could be a runaway hit. We could live in let's say we live back in 1978 and this movie comes out and it's well ahead of its time. I will not see a dime from any of that, no matter how many millions. Yeah, John Carpenter will not see a dime. But he got to make more movies because it made a lot of money for somebody.
No, but this is actually the reason I brought that up is this is a lot like the old independent system was. You would make a movie, you would sell it, and that was all the money you saw off it. And like you said, if the production company got lucky and they got a hit out of it, well, good for them. But you were just, you got to make a movie. And that's kind of where it is now. And I see some people are asking about how do royalties factor. Now, the royalties do as far as licensing, like something that was already made, and let's say like they licensed the Blues Brothers from Universal. Now they will pay Universal an upfront fee for renting that, and then I believe they get paid a small percentage every time it's watched. Now what Tom's talking about is like when they buy a movie flat out, that's all Amazon's. They basically get to keep a small percentage of whatever money you pay them every month because you watched their movie. The person who made that movie doesn't get any of that money if they bought the film flat out. This is a lot like Andres talked about before, where a movie will pre-sell its foreign distribution, but it's doing it straight to a streaming service instead of multiple different studios throughout the world, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And with internet, your union, if you're doing a union film, which I think you should, I'm in unions, you're seeing pennies on the dollar paid in royalties, and those royalties that are factored are very, very low. I have stuff all over the internet, and I'll get a check for 30 cents. You'll be lucky if you can buy a cup of coffee with a lot of the residuals we get, and this is for the big stuff. So, yes, they pay royalties. Yes, it can go towards, the pension and health of the people that made the film. But as far as actual business plan profit, once this model is the only place to do it, that licensing amount that you make becomes what you would tell an investor or a studio. You're like, well, this movie, no matter how good it is or how bad it is, this movie's going to make $10 million because that's what the license fee was. And after that, it's dead in the water. And that's it's not as volatile a way of doing it in theaters, but it also doesn't reward excellence the way somebody could show up and have a surprise hit. If Borat does incredibly, incredibly well and everybody that's already subscribed to Amazon watches it, that doesn't mean anyone spent any extra money. They were already paying that monthly anyway.
Right. And again, like this is all for Amazon's ability to keep money in their coffers and stuff.
Yeah. They want this is more about not, as Andre said, it's about not losing people instead of gaining people. It's just about a game of keeping the people you have so that you have the same cycle and pool of money every month that you can allot some of it to making more content and some of it to profit. But none of that has anything to do with the content providers unless it's an Amazon generated production where they will materially participate. Perhaps they're basically just taking taking what you make, giving you what they think it's worth, and then you watch it go. And if it takes off, you're out of luck. If it tanks, then you go, well, at least I made X amount of dollars, and then that's it.
Right. And I mean, again, this isn't even so much about Borat as it is just so much about, what movies are going to look like going forward. And we kind of had this conversation on a few different places. I think we did last night too, Rob, on Mead, where we're just kind of like, like is this like where things are going? Are we going to see less and less and less of the big tentpole films? I mean, it really looks like once we get past this whole thing, unless there is a light at the end of the tunnel, are things going to be a little smaller for a while on the screen? I mean, I'm putting that literally and figuratively, I guess.
Yeah. About that, there is one thing of note there, which is that what they recently announced was that Spider-Man 3 is now filming. Now, that is certainly going to be a big movie. They haven't had the time to scale that down, I think. Or have they? Konkle, what do you think about that? For one thing, that the movie is filming in the first place. How much is that going to add to the budget of an already expensive movie? And is that wise?
Very good question. The last budget that I did to try and propose to make something, COVID protocols added about 30% to the budget, to the below the line, because you have to have on-set disinfecting every single day. You have to have all the COVID protocols and testing every single day. The unions have outlined, there have to be on-set technicians. There has to be a training function, with a person that shows everyone. So it adds a lot of additional expense in both equipment, personnel. Now, obviously, they're doing it to protect the investment in the film and protect the people that are doing it from getting COVID and getting sued. Ironically, Spider-Man, wearing a mask at the very least. But I think for a movie like Spider-Man, so many pieces are already in motion. They have to make this movie. So they're going to eat that additional 30% and hope that either there will be the ability to do a theatrical if there are any theaters left by the time this is done, or this will be another case where they'll hope for a bidding war and that they'll recoup the amount that they invested in making the film and selling it to the streaming service. In this case, though, with Marvel, Disney Plus is they're selling it to themselves. So here's the business model.
Because it's a Sony movie.
Yes, but Sony has an exclusive deal, I think, for the release, initial release with Disney. Disney already has the right to release it on their platform.
Yeah, I don't think they did for Homecoming and Far From Home, but I think you're right, Tom. I think I remember reading something about that in the new deal.
And the way that works is you're basically selling it to yourself. So it's a bit like it's when you're buying a house, if the realtor represents both the person selling the house and the person buying the house, they can say, look, hey, this is a great price. You should probably take this. So I don't know if Spider-Man 3 makes sense financially. The only thing that makes sense to me on a streaming thing is if they think this is going to bring in a significant amount of people onto the Disney Plus platform, then yes, it perhaps makes sense that if they could, increase by a third their subscriber base. But that's the problem right there, is it's divided as a property. Sony is gambling on the international release and then being able to put it in theaters there to make money. But look, they've made it so top heavy already. How many villains are in it? How many stars? They're bringing back all the Spider-Man.
Well,
so it's going to be an expensive movie.
That may not be the case. The film did start shooting, but who's actually going to be involved is now up in the air, because Sony finally did address if Spider-Man 3 will have 3 Peter Parkers, evidently, according to alternate press, and they're also claiming that a teaser is supposed to be out in December. I don't know about that.
I don't know if that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, but according to them, one source reported that all 3 Spider-Man will be, well, actually more than one source has reported that. But however, Sony commenting on the casting rumors that have sent fans into a frenzy. According to ET Canada, fans shouldn't get their hopes up just yet. Those rumored castings are not confirmed. So what that's saying is this is obviously something they've been planning, but it has not been confirmed. So even though they started shooting, Andre, what does that tell you? That this is something they can do without if they don't get this done?
You know what that tells me? That tells me that those 3 Spider-Man are not going to be in the movie proper. But I would not rule out that they're going to be in a post-credit scene.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. Because where they will be is in the movie that this is setting up. Because from our good friend Mikey Sutton, who runs Geekosity magazine, he has told us, and the other readers of Geekosity, I might add, that this movie right here, Spider-Man 3, will be setting up the live-action Spider-Verse movie. And that's the movie that's going to have the 3 Peter Parkers. And the only thing that this is going to do is set that up. So for this, you may not even need them on screen, or if they are, it's going to be like a blink and you miss it cameo. That's going to come like as a surprise towards the end or anything. But if you expect 3 Peter Parkers in this movie, then you're in for disappointment, I think.
Which of course begs the question: will this new, with the lack of movie theaters and the lack of the plan you've had for the last 10 years, will this still work and make money and build the way it did in theaters and then ancillary markets if it's just coming out as a streaming movie on Disney Plus? It'll be very interesting to me to watch that and see how much it adds to Disney Plus. I mean, what are we calling profit? That's still what my big question is, because if it's only watched by 100% of all the people that already subscribe to Disney Plus, did it really make money? Did that movie make money, or did all it do was just tread water with the people that already? It's like, is it a victory now to say, hey, nobody unsubscribed from Disney Plus this month? Is that how we measure success? I'm really curious.
That's a very good question. And again, that goes back to the whole point of, are there enough people to sustain these kind of movies? Even having nothing to do with, like POV sales. Like, this is just, can they afford to just, we're going to put this on Disney Plus and hope it generates some.
Remember, they're paying for Benedict Cumberbatch in this film as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a top-heavy film already, and you're adding Jamie Foxx, who's an Oscar winner. So you're looking at about 10 million per person. So that's 30 million right there for the talent, and you haven't even rolled camera yet, plus the licensing fee for the property to Sony, plus 30% for COVID, plus any action scenes, any stuff you have going on, all your below the line. All right, so now we're at 200 million and we haven't rolled camera yet. And that's how these budgets go. And it is a victory. Again, is it then a $200 million is the license fee to itself on Disney? And do they just hope it does well overseas if the movie theaters are still around overseas? It's a Wild West show right now.
I'm honestly surprised that this even moved forward into production with, as you say, what it would have cost in this situation. Like, they're stuck with a number of big budget movies already. I mean, look at Black Widow. And
yes,
the current situation, like the people that thinks that this is going to be over in a couple of months, they're dreaming. If it were up to me, I think that we're going to be in exactly the same position 1 year from now, only much worse. That's
I agree.
Would be my guess.
I wonder if Amy Pascal is pushing it because she has a license over a limited number of time, and if technically you don't go into production on something by a certain window, you can lose the rights.
We brought that up before too, but
I would not be surprised if there's a contractual thing that this has to happen. It has to happen at that cost. If not, then things are.
Well, that's the thing, because now these are joint. Yeah, because like Tom was bringing up before, these are joint now. Unlike before Homecoming and Far From Home, I think Sony was the one paying for it, and they were just, the whole thing with Iron Man was being loaned to them like a trade-off deal. And now in this situation, if I remember right from the deal, they're on board. And I don't know if it's 50%, but it's like 40-60 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a big percentage. You're right, Tom. Yeah. And Andre, I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a very good possibility that this will not change in the next year. But what is happening is, Amy Pascal and Marvel and Columbia, which is Sony, are all going, we don't want to lose Peter Parker. Better to start it and then go, oh, act of God, we've got to shut down. We had COVID and get an extension, then lose the property. And so again, you have, I'm in a crazy business. You have a business that starts knowing they can't finish, but they have to start in order to not lose what they have.
Well,
it's a bit go ahead.
I was just saying, I think part of it might just be they have no choice. Because I know, like, the way they've been pushing the Marvel movies back, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong from my remembering from our Midnight's Edge After Dark reporting, like, the whole thing is these have to come out in a specific order. They have a specific set storyline, and that's why everything's being pushed back a year. And, they have to come out in this order. They can't just drop the shows and then hold off on the movies, was kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt there's a flow chart in Kevin Feige's office that
and I was told the other day that he plays shit so close to the chest that I was talking to somebody who's actually done some design work for them. He won't tell them shit until 2 weeks out.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, what made it work is that he's his own kind. He's an auteur producer, and he at least has a vision. He knows where he's going. Like Rob was just saying, there's probably a flow chart in his office, and you have to hit. It's like Love and Thunder has to hit here. Spider-Man 3 has to start here. Now, the question, of course, is everything's in motion. Everything that set that flow chart now. Well, movies as a thing, going to the movies, we don't know. COVID protocols, we didn't know. Everything's 30% more expensive to make. That is just a hard figure. You can't move forward. No union would let you shoot if you didn't have that extra 30% in protocols. And beyond that, streaming. What are we calling success? Are we saying just eyeballs, but they didn't buy a ticket? That's now the success. So you have a runaway hit and you didn't make a dime. Well, that sounds like the old days when, I've had movies where I put them out and I'm like, wow, everybody seems to be seeing this, but I never get a check. But at least you had the opportunity to go see it and buy a ticket. Now, if it's on a streaming service, it's already been bought and paid for before the audience ever saw it. And there's disincentive for it to be any more for the filmmakers money wise, because all that money only goes to the platform, to the streaming platform.
Right.
Exactly. And speaking of platform and streaming, we have a movie that we would like to talk about that concerns you, Tom. But before that, we have a couple of super chats to go through. Speaking on Spider-Man, Tonister Tree says Spider-Man will use the Mandalorian graphics engine set and cut production costs way down.
That's a big possibility.
I would be shocked if they didn't do that. Like, everything Disney's going to use that, and everyone else that can get their hands on it.
I think so. They're shooting a lot of it, though, in Atlanta, and I know there was some on-set stuff. A friend of mine said that they were in New York getting B-roll and B-shots, and I know that they are shooting some in Atlanta, but they might be using, it's called the Stagecraft system. They might be using Stagecraft to limit the company moves, because everybody in the production has to bubble for the duration of it. You can't leave once you're on the set. You can't leave, crew can't go, hey, I'm going to take off for the weekend. That doesn't happen.
Well, and like
you're right.
Our reporting had pretty much been confirmed that they pretty much used that same technology to reshoot Rise of Skywalker. And I don't mean reshoots, I say reshoot entire film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But now when you go on a location, now we do full panoramic shots of every room we're in. You do it with the same lighting setup, but no people in them. And then we go in and do the close-ups later with the wall, behind that the person had before. Or I can reconfigure a room. Like, if I shoot a dialogue scene and I'm in a castle, I'll just shoot the whole thing out, the whole castle 360, get just a basic establishing shot, go home, and then I can pick any angle I want to have the people come in, and I'll shoot their faces with the same background. You don't need to stay in a location now anymore.
Yeah,
and I think that's how a lot of things are going to get done going forward. So.
Yeah, I know I am. Yeah.
And we had two more super chats. From one from Pilgrim Media, who says they're using these films to launder nefarious cash. Well, I'm sure that's the case with some movies. Don't know about all of these ones. But,
That's a pretty.
I think Nefarious Cash.
That's a discussion for another video altogether.
Wasn't Nefarious Cash a rapper? I think that was the name of the rapper. Nefarious.
Yeah,
Cash.
his second album sucked though.
The second album was terrible. Yeah, called Laundering. Yeah.
And PRRK for Pacific says, do you guys think Netflix will get bought? I cannot see them staying a standalone service forever.
You know, Netflix had the chance to be bought years ago by Blockbuster, and Blockbuster fucked up. Yeah. Right now, they're worth so damn much. Unless some Uber, like
it would have to be Google or Apple or
Apple,
something.
yeah, exactly.
Apple could pay cash.
Apple is not going to do it. Yeah, Apple they could afford it, but they already have their Apple service. But if they just want to decide that, you know what, we want to be dominant now, so we're just going to write Netflix a check. They could do that. But
it might actually be smart of them to eliminate their competition by buying it and wrecking it.
The problem you also have though is like if the government decides to step in though, Tom, like.
Very true, but I've noticed that there's been almost no talk of the kind of separation you used to see between movie theaters and production companies. The antitrust laws do not seem to apply. The Disney sale went through when they bought 20th Century Fox. They have a large stake in Hulu already. They've got Disney Plus. They could make an argument that they even have the streaming service ABC.com already. So if you had Apple jump into the game, they could say, no, we're just simply expanding our base that we already have. We're a technology company. So we're simply buying the technology of Netflix, and then the content is secondary. Netflix is mortgaged up to the hilt. They spend more than they make every year, and their mandate. The reason their shows are dropping off so fast. I've been over to Netflix and I've had a pitch there, and I see things are money flows like honey in rivers there, but the reality is they're borrowing all this money against what they will eventually make. And so when they spend $1 billion a year on new content, that bill is going to come due. And what's going to happen is other studios are raiding their library. Their only worth is the films that they actually have. And they've been scrambling to create Netflix product because Warner is going to take everything off Netflix and put it on their service. Disney already is taking off. The only thing that Disney on there is, long-term licenses that will expire. Paramount, all the other companies are going to pull their content. All Netflix is going to have left is stuff that Netflix generated. And will that be compelling enough to keep people? I don't know. But the infrastructure of Netflix, the storage system, the delivery system that they have for overseas and here, that could be valuable to Apple because it could save them billions in infrastructure and R&D to just buy it outright. Just say, look, I'll write you a check and take care of your debt. Here's $5 billion, go away. And they could do that tomorrow. They have the cash.
Yeah, indeed. And now, speaking of the content and streaming service and everything, Mr. Tom Konkle, you are a filmmaker. And you have something coming out, don't you? Why don't you tell us more about that and where people can see it and how that fits into the larger streaming things?
Yeah, well, we're the scrappy little indie scene. I am in a film called Noise in the Middle, that's coming out in something called AVOD. What AVOD is, it's basically like the video on demand, but it's available to you without having to buy or rent it. It has ads in. And there's a channel here on YouTube called Kings of Horror. Are you familiar with Kings of Horror at all?
I am now.
Okay, yeah, well, Kings of Horror, like they support a lot of independent horror films and indie films that basically don't have mainstream distribution, but a lot of the new ideas in horror or a lot of new talent is coming up through there, and they are a supportive platform that a company named Terror Films that is distributing the movie that I'm in called Noise in the Middle, and that comes out this Thursday. It's 3:00. We're actually going to do a live stream chat. You can talk to us and members of the cast. And we'll premiere it. And what's great about something like that, and great about YouTube is like Midnight Edge. You can interact with the people that made the film. You can chat, you can ask questions, you can watch it with us, and it's a lot of fun that way. So tomorrow at 3, if you're a horror fan and you want to support independent features, it's a worldwide premiere of Noise in the Middle.
All right, and I think Rob's got to check out.
Yeah,
or are you going to stick around for a little bit?
No, yeah, I'm gonna check out. Yeah, I got a couple things I got to see too. Yeah, I got a squirrel to trap.
There you go. All right, well, good luck with that, Rob.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we're going to check out this trailer.
See you guys. Please do.
Yes.
Autism's a communication disorder. When you communicate, you have a sender and a receiver.
There will be a low clicking sound.
Everything in between is lost.
This must seem like a dream at times, eh? Raising a girl without her mother can be incredibly hard.
I know. I miss her too. This machine helps us sort out all the noise in the middle so we can hear Emmy. Have you tried the app with her yet?
Bad.
She only likes her pictures.
Let her take as many pictures as you can.
Bad.
She's always trying to say something.
Did you do this? Did you kill the cat? What are you looking at? How do you know if someone from the other side is trying to talk to you? She's an indigo, which means she's a conduit for spirits. Emmy? I think that you're sitting on a ton of paranormal energy.
Emmy!
You okay? Look at me.
There we go. You got to see me dressed up looking like the dude there.
So you can see that in just over 24 hours for free. Doesn't cost you a dime.
Doesn't cost you a dime. And what was kind of fun about making it is we made it up in Spokane and kind of went up. It's a scrappy little bunch. We had Tara Buck in it. She's in True Blood. John Meese has done a bunch of X-Files and stuff. Myself, Juliet. And then the girl, the Emmy, she's amazing. She's actually the daughter of the DP, but she's just this terrific actress who just disappeared into this, autistic child who couldn't communicate. And the basic premise just really struck me. It's that a girl who can't communicate begins to become haunted by her dead mother trying to speak through her, but she already can't communicate. And the father has kind of checked out, completely. The father's played by this guy, John Meese. And, you can imagine that already the stress of a father who has, he's just lost his wife. He's got a child who's not communicative. He's on edge and he's kind of falling apart. Well, he moves into this house and it's got kind of a Shining vibe in that, is it him creating this about her that he just can't stand, the stress of like, oh, I've got a daughter who has problems and I have to deal with it. Is he creating it and becoming the monster, or is there something monstrous in this house? Is there some force that's acting on them? And so it had the interesting entry point of the very human problem of how stressful it would be as a single parent to deal with a child who had a disorder like that, really non-communicative autism. But on top of that, the supernatural and horror element of what if that child that you already are on edge and you're just trying to break through to, what if there was something wrong supernaturally with that child as well? And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's a really interesting idea. So Marcus McCullum, the guy that I did the movie with, he and I have done a ton of stuff together. We met doing commercials. He's incredibly talented. Mark Conley, the producer on it, is a fan as well of our work and really facilitated it. So we did this thing as a scrappy little indie, and we tried to make it look and feel as good as we possibly could. And then through this process, we've been looking for the right place to put it, and it just made sense to premiere it in an unusual way by having this live chat on Kings of Horror, and then after that, it'll migrate to all the other platforms. I think about 6 weeks into the launch, it'll be on all the digital platforms. By the 11th of December, you should be able to see it everywhere. But the fun place to see it would be tomorrow if you're available, because there'll be a live stream chat with the filmmakers, and you can talk to me, and we can enjoy the film together almost in the same kind of communal way you would in a theater.
Well, I know I'm going to try and be there if time permits. So hopefully some of you guys will be there as well, and that'd be cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone, be sure to check that out. What else can you say about the movie? How was filming it?
Filming it really was smooth, because the crew was just a well-oiled machine. The DP Doug I've worked with for the last 11 years. Doug is amazing. We did a bunch of shorts and commercials together. The process was incredibly smooth. The house up there, Marcus had access to, which was a great location, and it did have that kind of creepy, shining kind of vibe to it, because it's almost like the house is kind of staring at you if you look at it from the beginning. And we went up there, and we really had both a good time making it, but also everyone was just very focused on trying to make something that we would want to see. We're like, okay, let's take on this genre. Let's try and make the best kind of thriller. Try and it cost nothing to get decent acting. So it was a lot of people that we had worked with before. Beth Holmes was the casting director, and I've known her for years. And everything came together. Sometimes you have a very positive experience putting it together, and I certainly will be the first one to say when something has been a negative. It's like, oh, it was a nightmare, but it still turned out great. But in this case, it was a great bunch of humans that got together to make this film, and then the journey of getting the film out was such an education, because of course it started before COVID, and it ended in production. In post-production during this whole pandemic problem. And so the strategy of releasing it was modified, and the expectations for what we could do. But we actually turned it into a positive, because a little film like this isn't going to get a huge theatrical release in theaters anyway. We're a scrappy little indie. And so with more people home and more people comfortable with streaming, Providence might work in its favor in the case that independent films are going to live on these AVOD channels and these platforms anyway. So it gives us a chance to at least be seen on a level playing field. And I think that's fantastic. It gives a lot of people that deserve, the actors in this, the crew, everyone that worked, they deserve some recognition. They deserve to have their work seen. And for right now, there's never been a better time for that, because there isn't a lot of Hollywood production screaming for attention right now. So for a filmmaker like me, this is fantastic. Normally my day job is working for studios and doing, acting for their stuff, or doing someone else's production, or directing for someone else. This is a great opportunity to put something up that we generated and have it at least have a level playing field for a little while, that it's on a streaming platform just like anything else as a premiere, including a studio.
All right. So yeah, check out that link. We threw that in the description, I believe, too, and I threw it in the chat a couple times, and park up for that if you want to check it out. Other than that, the other news we had to discuss, Andre, what was on the table?
Yeah, there was this new Stephen King adaptation, wasn't it?
Yeah, speaking of filming during the pandemic, actually, I missed that segue. Apparently, they remade Children of the Corn.
just incidentally.
Incidentally, they remade the movie. Yeah, it gets a limited theatrical release in 2 theaters right now at this time. and then I'm assuming at some point they'll roll it out. They'll roll it out into some streaming service, but yeah, it just kind of ran underneath everybody's radar. It was brought to the attention of BloodyDisgusting.com by Club Stephen King and the Herald Tribute. I guess it's playing in CMX Cinebistro and Burns Court Cinema, both in Sarasota. So if you're in Sarasota, you can go see this.
Who directed that? Who directed that?
Let's see here. Cast includes... Don't see a director named right now.
Oh, you know what? It's directed by
Wilmer.
Kurt Wimmer.
Kurt Wimmer, yep.
Yeah, Kurt Wimmer. He did Equilibrium.
Ah, okay.
Equilibrium with Christian Bale, and I actually liked that movie a lot. He wrote Salt. Yeah, he's kind of been working steadily for a long time. He did. I'm kind of my my dirty little secret film that I love. I still love Equilibrium that he did, but then I think he kind of went off the rails with Ultraviolet with Mila Jovovich. He directed those and then kind of went away as a writer for a while. But it looks like I'm looking at the IMDb right now. Children of the Corn, and you know what? He was very smart. Children of the Corn is budgeted at only $10 million to make. So at a $10 million price point, if he can get the Stephen King name out there, he probably licensed it for more than he made it.
Interesting. Yeah, I just saw this last night and I'm just like, okay. It says here he directed it. He was the executive producer and the writer, so he must have licensed the property again and went ahead and did it. And I mean, Kurt, his out of the gate, Equilibrium. I don't know what you guys thought of it. Have either of you seen Equilibrium? Years and years and years ago. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's a Christian Bale. It's kind of it's an action film. It has gun kata in it, and it's set in a 1984 type universe. Sean Bean is in it. Christian Bale is in it. It actually has a really good cast, and it's one of my favorite little films nobody's ever heard of. It got lost in the shuffle. I think at the time Miramax was going to release it or something, and there was something lost in the shuffle, and they did no promotion on it whatsoever. And it was right before Bale got Batman. So it was a while ago. And the
Weinsteins owned the rights for a while. That's what I'm figuring is when all that.
That's right. And it got lost. It got lost in the shuffle a long time ago. But I like the film a lot. I'd be proud if I made that movie. I thought he did a really great job with it, and I thought, okay, this guy's got a lot of promise. And then I think Emily Watson's in it. I mean, Angus McFadden, a bunch of great actors were in it. So maybe, Children of the Corn, this might be an interesting take on it. But yeah, it's only a $10 million budget. It could make some money. This is the size film that is absolutely ideal for a streaming platform because it's got name recognition with Stephen King, but he kept the cost down. Kurt Wimmer is a very good filmmaker. I think he's skilled, and it's got that brand, and it only cost $10 million to make, so he probably licensed it for more than $10 million.
I'm sure that's going to be a big hit. But
I don't know about that.
Got someone hijacking the thread, didn't we? Greetings, Gary J. Tunnicliffe.
I was pretty appalled before at you guys, with your anti-Ridley Scottisms, but you haven't seen Equilibrium? What is wrong with you guys?
I saw it years and years ago.
That's one of my favorite films. Equilibrium is by far. Yeah.
And the joke is, Equilibrium in today's world with all of the crazy censorship and wokeness, that's where we're heading. It's a perfect movie to see right now.
I haven't even had time to watch Borat yet, but I've seen it years ago.
Equilibrium's ancient.
I saw it many years ago.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. I liked Equilibrium, but before we get into that, Tom Konkle and Gary, I'm very happy to be able to reintroduce you guys. You've met before, haven't you?
Yes, many years ago. I think wasn't it it was the repurposed Pumpkinhead, and I voiced a little old British lady over that. Oh yes, it was her. Yeah, I was doing yoga. Yeah, so I remember doing that. So yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Gary. Then briefly, we were working on a commercial, and he's super talented, just on so many levels of creating. Yeah, and I remember, June, then I saw you here on Midnight Edge because I watch it for enjoyment. You know, I'll watch this channel. I was like, I know that guy. So then we started talking just now about Ridley Scott, and I was like, that would be an interesting discussion because I love Ridley Scott. I absolutely love him. But I would say Ridley Scott can frame a shot, but tell a story he cannot.
Yeah.
No.
Guys, before we get into it, guys, let's just get everyone up to speed before. So Gary, just like hold your horses for 1 minute. Everyone, last time Gary was here, we randomly started discussing Ridley Scott. And my take on Ridley Scott, and I believe that Tom, as in Midnight's Edge, Tom is in agreement with me on this, is that Ridley Scott, he is a fantastic filmmaker from a visual point of view. In terms of pure visuals, there is no one better in the game than him. However, when it comes to story and storytelling, he is still very good, provided he has someone else write the script for him. Case in point, The Martian, Gladiator, Alien, all fantastic movies. But the moment that he starts going too much into the story himself, then you get the likes of Blade Runner, which took 30 years before you got a good cut in the final cut, and Prometheus, that is still in need of a better cut. I mean, the fan edits, all of them are better than the theatrical version. And just look at how many different versions there are of Alien and several of its other movies. So great,
and Covenant is fucking garbage.
Visualist.
Let's face it. Garbage.
We can get into each and every single one of his movies. So basically, that was our point of view. Whereas Gary J. Tunnicliffe, he was in massive disagreement. And behind the scenes, we spoke with Tom Konkle, who's a little bit more on our side. Now, Gary, before you go into the defense of Ridley Scott, let's hear what the prosecution has to say. Mr. Konkle, the stage is yours.
All right. I say this as someone who absolutely loves Ridley, and I do not for a second deny him the idea that he took a certain school, a British art school style that came out in the 70s, where his framing, his painterly shots were amazing. But I do think I can sum up Ridley in one sort of very real story from the set. On the set of Legend, Ridley was setting up an interior shot from Legend, and that all takes place in that.
The whole movie was in interior.
Yeah, well, but he's setting up an interior shot with what he calls flotsam, and he wanted lots of flotsam. So he'd set everything up. A couple hours in on it, he's like, more flotsam. I want more. We definitely need more flotsam. And so he's throwing it out there, and he's got beautiful lighting and everything set. And he's like, terrific. Okay, and roll. And the first AD goes, Ridley. And he's like, shh, what? More flotsam, more flotsam. And eventually the first AD goes, there are no actors on the set. And he goes, cut. Okay. That's Ridley. He's looking at the light. He's looking at the feeling. He's waiting. He'd completely, and this is not hypocritical, had completely forgotten to get anyone on the set.
Tom, you've been on a film set. How often? That cannot happen when you're shooting a scene. You know that for a fact. That cannot happen.
I know for a fact that Ridley is
warming them up. You cannot set up a shot and then start rolling when no actors are there. That wouldn't happen on any set in the world.
It doesn't happen on any normal set except Ridley's sets.
I don't believe
Ridley is about light and place, and if he has a great story, he doesn't get in the way. And what I mean by that is if he were a painter and you told him to paint a beautiful flower and the flower was already beautiful, he would give you the most beautiful version of that flower he could. But if you gave him a box of mud and said, make a flower out of it, he would still try and paint a flower and it would be a mess. but he would still use the same toolkit he has.
I think
brilliant at that.
I think that goes for virtually every director on the planet. I mean, I think we all agree to shoot things that probably aren't that great in the hope that they'll figure it out. But I mean, we've all read scripts that we thought were brilliant and then they didn't turn out quite that great. We've all read things that we thought the characters were wonderful. I mean, Tom, you've been at how many million production meetings when the producer stands up and says, hey, everyone, we've got the best team and a great script and fantastic, and we're all going to make a fantastic movie. When were you ever at a production meeting when the producer stood up and said, hi, everybody, well, we've got this script. It's a pile of shit, you know, but I mean, hey, we're all going to make a paycheck, so what the fuck? Let's just do it, right? It's always, yeah, rah, rah, rah. It's going to be great. Because the truth is, we don't know how good these things are until we've shot it, until it's edited, until it's put together. How many people were on the set of Jaws saying, this is going to stink, this movie, until the wonderful Mother Cutter got in there and chopped it all up and made it into the movie it is. And anyone who's edited a movie in the world, anybody who can watch Jaws with editor's glasses knows that that film is a Frankensteinian monster put together beautifully. Scenes don't make any sense. There are places where people are having dialogue where they were on the back of their heads. Scenes are completely looped. It's a complete amalgamation of fixing it in the editing room. And I think all directors suffer with that. I think, but if you look at Ridley's other work, apart from some of the visual spectacles, things like Thelma and Louise or Body of Lies and some of those movies, even The Martian, you know, they still rely on great directing of actors. Because really, that's what you're doing. If you're not getting the visual, you're directing the performance out of your actor. You're directing the continuity of shooting scene 1 as opposed, you know, and then shooting scene 94 and then shooting scene 11 and then shooting scene 65. And that's what a director does, is have that vision. Yeah, it's creating a visual world, which Ridley does like nobody else, but it's also maintaining the arc of the entire film and keeping your actors in check, not letting them go overboard, not letting them run away, getting great performances from young actors, casting young actors who maybe no one else has seen. You look at a film like Black Hawk Down and spot young Tom Hardy in the background there and people like that who clearly a director with the ability has spotted, or with a great casting department. I think Ridley
he's got great casting people. I don't deny that. But your argument is that Ridley is just, but there's your argument. You said Ridley's just like every other director. You just said that. He's just like anyone else. No, he goes into it and he doesn't know what he's going to get, right? That's what you just said.
Oliver Stone, Steven Spielberg, absolutely. But I think...
So he's no more exceptional than they are, is what you're saying.
But Gary,
he's just like every other director.
Yeah, guys, one point of contention here. Blade Runner is, in my opinion, one of the best movies ever made. The final cut version there is. The theatrical cut, that doesn't count. That's not on Ridley Scott because the producers took it away from him, added the narration and all of that. But in the early 90s, Ridley Scott had the opportunity to make a director's cut. And it was better than the theatrical cut, which was a mess. But still, it wasn't quite there. And years later, they made the final cut. What's the excuse there? He already had the opportunity to make a director's cut. Why was there need to make a final cut after that?
I think unless we're going to start the whole discussion, I think we should hold off until we do it. Right now, I think, you know, the case for the prosecution is he's not all visual fluff, that he's a great storyteller, a magnificent storyteller who can work. He's not just, painting pretty pictures. That's where I took offense. And that's where I think the discussion will lie. And I think we should, because if we start down the Blade Runner path,
that's my point. If he's such a great storyteller, why was there need for a final cut after he had full freedom in making his director's cut? Then there should be no need for a final cut after that. That's better than the director's cut, because he had the freedom, and it's the exact same footage. It's just assembled in a better way, which makes for a more wholesome movie.
I agree. What I would say though is, I would say that that's completely objective. That like you might like that version, and I think if Ridley were here, we'd probably say, well, I happen to really like my cut because it's got everything I wanted in it, so I like it. I like more. I like more.
The audience likes the final cut better.
But how do we explain the 1492 Conquest of Paradise, which looked beautiful? In fact, Vangelis's soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks ever on that one as well. But the storytelling is lacking. Then he'll have a Thelma and Louise, which is great, but it had two very strong actors and a very strong script. But then you have before that Black Rain, Someone to Watch Over Me, Legend.
Black Rain made a huge amount of money, by the way. Black Rain was a huge financial success.
Right, but how was the storytelling? Name one. What's your favorite scene in Black Rain?
No, again.
Okay, got you.
What I'm saying is, right, you tell me a director who every film they've ever done has been an absolute stellar, monumental thing, right?
Stanley Kubrick.
Sorry?
Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick. Okay. Well, I think there's a lot of people out there who would say that. Now, look, unfortunately,
they'd be wrong, but they can say
I love Eyes Wide Shut. I love it, but there's a lot of people who don't. Right,
but the storytelling can't be challenged in that. At least the auteur. What by definition for you, and I respect that. What is an auteur to you? Is an auteur someone who makes the same story a bunch of different ways, or is an auteur someone who puts their own imprint on any genre they do? What's your definition of an auteur?
Well, I think
let's not lose track of what.
Yes. No, I'm saying. Here's my next argument: is Ridley Scott an auteur or is he a chameleon?
Oh no, I think he's an auteur because I think if you see a Ridley Scott film, you know it's a Ridley Scott movie.
Really? Okay. So if I showed you, let's say I showed you Someone to Watch Over Me, you would say that's the man that made Alien and Blade Runner. If I showed you G.I. Jane, you would say to me, oh yeah, Prometheus, all over it. He's an auteur. He's telling the same stories. He's exploring the same themes. If I showed you Hannibal, you would say, look at the guiding hand and
then showed you Schindler's List. Would you tell me it was a Spielberg movie?
Yes, because the sentimentality's there, the framing, the way he tells a story. You can a Spielberg oneer you can see in every one of those films. You can see how he uses a oneer.
Look. I think we're picking. I think what I fundamentally am appalled by is the fact they're saying, which some of Andre's comments were, he's a hack. He's not a great director.
He's not a hack.
No.
He's not a hack.
I'm not saying that.
I think
story-wise,
he's legendary, great directors we've ever had.
He is a fantastic director. I agree, and I watched Blade Runner every day for couple of months when I was in film school because there was something new in it, layers. It's a layer cake. And I think when Ridley latches onto the right project and he shepherds it in through his, what I would call his auteur style, which is a visual style, and he doesn't let the acting get in the way. He gets a very strong man, he gets like a Russell Crowe, or he gets Harrison Ford, or he gets, a great ensemble cast, or Matt Damon. He does not get in the way. I'm not saying he fosters a bad performance out of someone, although you can get a counselor. I don't know did you see The Counselor, where, the acting in it is terrible and it didn't do well. But if he doesn't get in the way of it and he has a great story to tell from the beginning, even if he's the producer, if he's the one who stands up at the production meeting and goes, I've got a great one, this is my winner, I'm going to dedicate 3 years of my life to this, then it can be a great film. But I think if you look at his output, he has a tremendously high output, and a lot of it is either brilliant or a complete miss. So like most filmmakers, you have some, like you say, that go and some that just don't work. And his at-bat ratio has been very high. He's been swinging a long time. But what I'm saying is there are other factors that are not him that usually determine whether the film as a whole works, much more so than some other directors who just seem to have more of an ear for consistency.
Roll up 5 people.
Okay. I would say Christopher Nolan. I would say David Fincher. I would say Spielberg. I would say
I will if I
go
may. Here's one of the things that I object, because every director has some movies that don't quite work, and that's fine. This all
Sure,
happens.
of course.
My objection
Yeah.
with Ridley Scott in particular is that I'm not saying that he's a bad director, because he's generally great at getting good performances. It's all well lit, it's all well shot, all of that. However, the storytelling and the narrative, and especially the editing of Ridley Scott movies, often leave some to be desired. And this is a recurring thing with him, which happens more frequent with him than other comparable directors. Case in point, there are how many cuts of Alien? 2, 3? There are how many cuts of Blade Runner? 5, which are out on the Blu-ray and 4K special edition. But that's not all. If we go into Prometheus, there is so far released only 1 cut. However, that cut is such a mess that fan editors have gone and looked at the deleted scenes and cut different versions of the movie themselves. I've seen several of them. You guys maybe haven't, but in my opinion, every single fan edit that I have seen of Prometheus is vastly superior to the release version, which is a mess. And this is something that happens too often with Ridley Scott. Like you don't have that with Chris Nolan, Spielberg. There's not a single one of their movies that you can have a fan editor go in and make what ends up being a better movie. But
that's why there's no director cut.
You can do that.
There's no director cut of a Steven Spielberg film because he only shoots what he knows he's going to use.
And the one time he did mess around with Close Encounters, but he prefers the theatrical version now. So he did like a final version, but that does need to be brought up.
It's that abortion Indiana Jones 4 movie. Fucking hell.
Well, yeah, and there is that, but here's the thing.
Every director has like movies that aren't great, and that's not the issue, because every director has that. But in the case of Ridley Scott, you have so many examples of different cuts, but also fans going in and making arguably superior narratives than the official versions. That, of course, you have other directors that happens with too, but not of the caliber of a Ridley Scott. He's the only one in his grade of director where that happens, to my awareness. And hence my argument, he's a weak storyteller.
By the way, I love this conversation. I love this argument.
I just want to make a few points.
Be there for the actual thing when we do it. So what I want to do, really, Tom, Andre, is this: look, here's my leather glove. I'm pulling it off, and I'm challenging you to a duel.
The Duelist is one of my favorite of Ridley's.
Well, and for full disclosure, Gary, I actually was defending Ridley against Mr. H and Andre on a different podcast a while back, because I feel like there's a lot of grounds for discussion on this. Now, I do have to point out, though, Spielberg did do multiple cuts of Close Encounters. That is something that needs to be pointed out. There's different reasons for that, and you can get into that. And he also did that fucking version of E.T.
Yeah, there was a TV version and a politically correct version of ET where he removed the guns. And yes,
with the radio version,
the extended version of Close Encounters
and 1941 also has an extended version too. I want to say.
Yeah, and I think that was to sell VHSs or whatever it was for.
I guess. Look, I mean, here's the thing, right? Any genre director and any genre movies tend to come under attack, and I understand it. And look, I've watched Ridley Scott films as well, even as a
I love him.
And have my moments and said, what the hell, like a good year and stuff like that. But I think that we what I was kind of like shocked by was that it was Andre, you were kind of like very vocal about, like, I think he's not a great film director. And I was like, I think Ridley Scott's name belongs, in that top echelon. And yeah, he's made stuff that's not so great. And there are misfires.
I agree, but with a hedge.
Sorry?
I agree. His name belongs along with the top directors, but with a hedge that says not a great storyteller.
I'd argue his brother's a better storyteller.
Because
Tony was great.
We are looking at, in some of these cases, they are studio pictures, so you don't really know. Is Ridley getting final cut? I'm not sure. How much of this is like, look, we're changing stuff, blah, blah, blah. Again, Ridley's opinions on things might be what he kind of deems likable and blah, again. But I just think again, it's also weird. I mean, I just think as an influential film director visually, he's got his own kind of legacy there.
Agree.
But he hasn't also sticked with knocking out sci-fi movies after sci-fi movie. Like you look at someone like Carpenter, who did horror films and then tried to stray into a different world and kind of didn't succeed with Other Fare, but Ridley's managed to do other stuff as well. Thelma and Louise is definitely a movie that is very different from what you would expect from him, and he's even shown his abilities in kind of like Other Fare. Like, to me, Martian's a very intimate movie. Whilst it's got great visuals, it's a very human story. So it shows to me that, and again, knowing.
But does it really feel like a Ridley
material.
Scott? But that's my big question: is does The Martian really feel like a Ridley Scott movie, or is it just good movie because it had a great story?
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, because that's my argument is that to go to the whole Spielberg thing is like Spielberg movies still have a strong trademark.
Yeah,
Ridley Scott, his last half dozen movies, I'd have a hard time saying those are Ridley Scott movies.
Ridley has become less of a stylist as he's gotten older, of course. Like his movie, The Martian, doesn't have the same textural look that everything from The Duelist to Alien, all the way through even Legend, he's toned down his style, and style has evolved. But it's interesting to me, you made a great point, Gary, when he was responsible to another source, like a studio, there was a leveling that happened then. Earlier in his career, he did have to answer to more people. But now later, with as much control as he has, is his ratio of good films to misses higher now that he has the absolute end word? And he does, because he's very powerful.
I mean, as an 82-year-old man, he's fading off a bit.
But I mean, the last 15, 20 years, I think.
I've definitely seen. But I definitely agree that if I were a betting man and you were like, "Hey, bet on this Ridley Scott movie," are we sure it's going to be a success? I'd be a bit like, "No." There was a time when Ridley was a surefire, kind of like it's going to do a certain amount. But I definitely think, and they've become a bit bloated. I mean, I loved when he did. I remember seeing the making of Black Hawk Down, and him saying that he wanted like 80 days to shoot it, and the producer said we can only do something like 60, and he said he fought, and then said no, okay, I'll do it, and then he turned around and said, yeah, it was actually a good thing. It made me work faster,
less bloated, and again, I would even argue Kurosawa was in his 70s when he made Ron.
Yeah. No.
And so yes, your powers can fade.
I still think Ridley Scott, is one of those guys that, and you, I know you're going to agree with this, is that you might be sitting here 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, and it's like we're all sitting there talking about Ridley's latest incredible movie that's just blown us all away. It's still a possibility. It's not like
absolutely, but for me, he's
over.
For me, it's the best of times, worst of times with him. He either hits it out of the park, or you go, "Why did you make The Counselor?" And there's no middle ground with him usually.
Really, and I don't want to jump back into your previous discussions, but I'm going to say this because I'd love to make a comment on what you were all talking about earlier, which is right now with this whole streaming thing, we are literally in the all-you-can-eat buffet land. That's all it is. Every one of these streaming services is an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's like, how good is their buffet at the moment, And to me, the Borat thing, it's like, oh, they're doing lobster down at that all-you-can-eat buffet this weekend. We should go down that one. It's like, which all-you-can-eat buffet do you go and feed at, every week? And how long can they maintain the really good quality of food that they're serving at their buffet? And somewhere like Disney is, and this is what we have to really consider is, once they start making films, if they make a bunch of movies, if they make 10 Marvel movies that they can roll out over the next year and a half, then it's going to be a case of every month there will be a movie, and that's when it will tip the people to go towards these streaming services. And it's like they can then make it an investable, worthwhile for them, because that's the intrinsic value to them. And what I was going to say, basically, in touching to where we're at now, Tom, is that it's always been the way that it's a roll of the dice. Yeah, you can make a film and you can say, oh, it could be Halloween and it could make a shitload of money, and I would never have made a profit of that. But if you agree to sell it for a profit, if you make it for $10 and you can sell it for 50, and then someone buys it and they say it's literally exactly the same as being at a casino, and the guy looking at you and saying, I will, you've placed your bet, I will give you $100 to buy your $20 bet off you right now. You can let it roll and you might make $1,000, but you might make nothing. So do you want to take the $100 now? And if you do take the $100 and you say, yes, thank you, I'll take the $100 for my $20 bet, you need to shut your fucking mouth, say, I made a profit, and walk away. You can't go belly aching 6 months later when it's a mama success. You cannot. You just got to say, you know what? I agreed to sell it. I made a profit. I'm happy with my little profit. Thank you very much. And I'm happy. Because it might not have been a Halloween. It could have been Slumber Massacre 4. Or they're the ones taking the risk at that point. And they got to cash in on that relative. For every one of those ones that is a success, they've bought 10 other ones that hit the shits.
Of course. And my only counter to that is I love that we can allow for the roller coaster of something can be a huge breakout hit, because that's what fosters discovering new talent, or discovering even an older person who has a great voice, that it's a breakout hit. If we've leveled the playing field to where it's like, look, everyone gets 100, no matter whether it's going to be a hit or not. It doesn't allow for the wonderful surprises that you can get that have built this business ever since Jaws. You know, if everything had been paid the same when Jaws came out and it was a huge hit but didn't make any money and didn't move the needle at all for anyone, would we be looking at the blockbusters that followed it? And that's my only point.
I still think those will happen. It's going to be in a different kind of way, though. It's going to be again.
How do you think they're going to make money, though? How are they going to make surprise money? Not hedge your bet money, but how do you get your surprise extra money?
It'll be you won't get any surprise. It'll be exactly like you touched on with John Carpenter. John Carpenter made fuck all from Halloween. Mustafa Akkad made a crap load. You know, so John Carpenter made his money when he went on and did his next movie. You know what I mean? It's like the old way it's always been for a director. I'm doing a deal now, and they've just offered me points, and it's like, I'll never see that money, so what's the point?
Right, I always laugh at
money now, thank you very much. But it's like someone will make a film, it will sell to Netflix, they'll get paid their fee, the producers will get some money, get their money and walk away with whatever fee they get. And if the movie takes off and it's a good movie, which is always the thing, if it's a great movie that catches everyone's sensibility and everyone loves it, people will watch it, and that director will get the phone call of like, hey, do you want to direct a movie for this? And your director's fee is going to jump from $40,000 on that cheap little movie to $200,000, $500,000, and a cut of points or God knows what. That's where you make your money, down the pipe, like it was in the past. You know what I mean? And they will be breakouts. But again,
possibly. But the only reason your money goes up is because they know the movie will make more money next time. And if we establish a certain rate for success movies on streaming, if I know I can get you for $40,000 and you're only ever going to license it to me for $2 million, if it makes what would have been a $40 million box office in the movie theater, but we just license it every time, well, it's $10 million this time, we'll pick up the sequel for $20 million, your price is not going to go up as fast as it would if you're in the random marketplace of ideas and you know the next movie you make is going to make $400 million and it does. Well, you're basing your price on a flat rate. And the danger of a flat rate.
Are you talking about being as a director or as a producer of movies?
Well, both. Hopefully, you get you would on the second film. I always go, hey, and I'm producing along with everyone else. And if Halloween back then hadn't made, if Mustafa said, oh my God, I sold it for $2 million, in the 70s, and that's what it made, and it was a success, and a bunch of people saw it, but it didn't really make any extra money because the people that saw it already subscribed. Well, then he'll come back and say, okay, how about $4 million? He wouldn't say 40 million. He'd say, let's double it, because you can't predict what's something worth that doesn't make any money on streaming. It doesn't actually make money.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't make money in terms of like you being able to see a dollar and cents number.
Right. You just keep people. You're just keeping what you already have.
Well, and I get I get both sides of the argument here.
Right. All you're doing is you're bolstering the all-you-can-eat buffet. That's all we're doing.
Yes. You're right. We agree. We absolutely agree.
This week.
Yeah. Who's got the best buffet, and who didn't kill anyone who ate anything? So yeah.
Well, let's talk about the buffets for a minute, because this is a point that Midnight's Edge has been bringing up for a long time, and I swear we coined the term streaming wars. I wish we had trademarked it or whatever, but no, that's kind of the thing. I think you're both bring up very, very, very poignant points when it comes to this. But at some point, everybody may want to go eat at a different buffet every other week. Right. But at what point do you say, well, we're not going to this buffet? When are we going to stop paying for it? Because that's, I think, where a lot of people are at right now, is you have, I think, upwards of 10 or so major streaming services now.
Yeah, it's like cable TV again.
Yeah. It's actually worse because there's a lot of people who've noticed, it's costing them 2 or 3 times as much as their cable bill would.
So when you have, Tom, when you have 10 all-you-can-eat buffets, all trying to get you to come and eat at their restaurant, who is the one person who benefits?
They do.
No!
Yeah, because I'm not going to pay for every one of the buffets. I'm just going to skip it. I can afford maybe 2 or 3 services, and that's it. And I'm not going to subscribe to Disney Plus just to watch Mandalorian. I'll wait for it on Blu-ray or I'll pirate it.
But this is it, Tom. Like I said the other day, right? This is exactly the key point. Right now, this is yes, I'm in. This is no, I'm not. So this is Disney Plus and this is Tom Konkle, right? Disney is launched. No, I'm not interested at all. Okay, it's just a bunch of old fucking Disney movies. Who gives a crap? Okay, now they've got Mandalorian.
Because I own them. Yeah.
Oh, I'd be curious. Yeah, let me finish and I'll tell you why. Yeah, okay, so Mandalorian, I'm vaguely interested, right? Vaguely interested, no. But right now, all you're doing is paying for stuff that you've already seen. Imagine if we were in a world where Iron Man, Iron Man, Spider-Man, all these movies, Doctor Strange, were never seen anywhere, and suddenly they were rolling them out over the next year, and the only place you could see them on Disney, it's like every month we're going to give you a $200 million Marvel movies blockbuster, and you've never seen it before, and you can't see it anywhere but here. It's not just 1 month, it's going to be every month. That 1 year subscription fee suddenly becomes very, very attractive, and that's what they will do.
But at a $7 a month price point, even if you had everyone in America paying that, everyone was on your service, could you really sustain a $200 million production every single month?
No, see, now you're in my world. This is it, okay? This is the whole thing. This is where I get into my I don't understand it. So here's the Netflix mentality. I'm going to go back to the buffet thing, right? So guys, this way on the buffet menu, we've got crab legs and okay, Bob, I've done the math on this. This is like $100 a plate, and we're charging $29.95. Nah, it doesn't matter. We're just going to get as many people as we can into the fucking restaurant. It doesn't matter that they're paying $29.95 for $100 a plate. But Bob, we're losing money like fucking crazy here. Yeah. We'll just get them all in the door, and then we'll switch to chicken fingers eventually. But then everyone's going to start leaving. No, they won't. They won't care. No, they will, Bob. They're going to care a lot because, they're not going to want to go and eat just chicken fingers for $29.95.
Well, and we saw that kind of happen with CBS All Access. That exact scenario.
No, but they never had the people at the door like Netflix.
Well, that's the thing is people weren't going to pay the $29.99 for their shitty lobster, let alone.
Yeah, right. But this is what I mean. This is why with Disney, it's like really comes down to who's got the big pockets and who can outlast the other ones by providing a really good meal every week. And they will have to lose money. Again, you've got to imagine that someone at Disney sat there and said, look, guys, we're going to lose money for a couple of years, but we're going to slowly edge the market into our favor by just creating a plate that eventually people go, you know what? I wasn't really interested. Now I'm a bit more interested. Now I'm getting more interested. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to go to Disney. That day, I think, has a possibility of happening.
It's a great argument, but I will say this. First, Hometown Buffet just went out of business. That was the biggest buffet restaurant in America. Name three more really big buffet chains in America. I bet you can.
I'm talking about.
And when people want steak, they go to a good steakhouse. When they want Mexican, they go to Mexican. A buffet does nothing well. It does everything but nothing well.
Tom.
He's got a point though there.
No. I'm talking.
A buffet stinks. I haven't eaten in a buffet restaurant in 15 years.
Tom, I'm talking Las Vegas all-you-can-eat buffets. I'm not talking.
I don't do that either. I go to a good restaurant.
Absolutely. You're not the public. You're not the general
public. I am. Well, last time I checked, I'm in the public. Yeah.
You're a filmmaker.
No, but I gotta say, Tom's got a point because I've got all these streaming services, and guess what? I don't really watch them that often. But when something like Bill and Ted or whatever comes out, I will make the effort to go find it, and even though I have to go to that extra mile because it's something I want to see. Now, I know what you're saying,
I'll subscribe and dump it.
And I know what you're talking about, Gary, as far as like sooner or later, those things are going to be on the streaming services. I get that.
Oh, no.
But at what cost to these streaming, and how many are going to be left over when the dust settles? I think that's the big question. And I know we got to round out here soon, but Andre, was there anything you wanted to add?
And who remembers a really
this?
good buffet meal? You know,
Yeah, the thing that before we get too caught up in the buffet parallel,
Ridley Scott's buffet.
I think that's it. Everybody's getting hungry.
Yeah,
I would take good money.
I think that we are all in basic agreement about the state of the industry where streaming and theaters and budgets and finance are concerned. But let's round out the Ridley Scott discussion, because there I think we are very much where we started out, which is that some of us are of the opinion that Ridley Scott is a great director, great visualist, but not necessarily such a great storyteller. And like for me, for instance, I love The Martian. There he had a great script to work with, didn't he? Whereas you, Gary, seems to be of the opinion that he is a great storyteller too, even though his movies tend more often to not to have multiple edits.
I will concede that if I was rating his abilities as a director, I would rate his visual style and his kind of packaging of that kind of stuff in terms of, and I think
he's a stylist.
Years ago, I think he's probably not so much now, because I think at the time when he started his career, there was less visualization going on. Now there's so much out there, so many brilliant artists, that it's very hard to be completely unique and original. But clearly things like Legend and Blade Runner and Alien were revolutionary at the time and a great influence. I think it's very, very hard to be that influential a visualist these days. I mean, I think someone like Denis Villeneuve would obviously tip their hat towards Ridley Scott, as would David Fincher. But I would definitely see that, his storytelling sometimes, or his maybe seeing of the story elements in the script that don't work in the final film are lacking at times. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Ridley is this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you could say he's a visionary, but he doesn't always have a vision.
Well, more importantly, maybe Ridley, he's human. Maybe with all of his technical skills and certainly his people skills to be able to direct and move a small army and do it, maybe Ridley doesn't know exactly deep in his bones what makes it work when his film does work. And maybe there's something in the DNA where if the alchemy comes together, he can shepherd it and get it to work, and his hand is all over it. But I recall this. Let me tell this story. This is another true story. It's not about Ridley, but it's very much to my point. Anthony Hopkins told a story where he went to see Laurence Olivier perform live, and he did a version of, I think it was Henry V. And it was brilliant. Like Anthony Hopkins was young, and he was like, I question whether I should even go into acting. It was such an amazing performance. I have to go talk to him. And being a young actor, he got backstage, and he found Laurence Olivier crying in the green room, which is the room you're in after the production. And he genuinely was crying. And Anthony was like, I came back to tell you how brilliant you were. Like, you're inspiring. What's the matter? Why are you upset? And Laurence Olivier looked at him. He goes, I don't know what I did.
Right.
That's Ridley.
Oh no. I
honestly think Ridley
I kind of see that.
Know.
I do.
Look
at Alien is a great
brilliant.
example, because he doesn't even understand why that was brilliant in the first place. I watched the director's cut, and I'm like, why is this a director's cut? The first one was perfect.
The director's a replicant. Yeah, I mean, there's the thing about Ridley is I think he is brilliant when he doesn't really know why it's working, but he doesn't get in the way, and all the elements come together. He's brilliant at putting music with something. I mean, obviously, this is the man who went, yes, Vangelis, yes, let me get Sid Mead to design this, or Gladiator, you got Hans Zimmer, and he got this beautiful production design. But then the next couple of films, you go, who is this man, and what happened to the guy who made these other movies? Versus someone like Peter Weir, where it's like, there's not another version of Gallipoli. There's not another version of Master and Commander. There's not another version of Witness. But also he's very much about what makes it work, whereas Ridley feels his way around, and sometimes he feels his way into door number 1, and door number 1 is a winner. Sometimes he feels his way into door number 2, and you're like, wow, what happened? I think he can still be an auteur, and I love him. He is literally one of my most favorite, most influential. As a kid, I did a film called Rogue Hunter, which was a ripoff of Blade Runner because I loved every shot of it. But I still wonder, does he know? Is he Laurence Olivier sitting there sometimes going, I don't know what I did. It worked, but I don't know why this worked.
He also had a few other director's cuts we failed to mention. Even though Gladiator was so well, he still did a director's cut of that, and Kingdom of Heaven, I think, was the other one, and there was another one.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count because Tom Rothman screwed the theatrical version of it, so that one doesn't.
Well,
count.
then you can't count Spielberg on Close Encounters because the only reason that special edition exists is because Columbia badgered the piss out of him to get it done, and they're like, "You got to show the inside of the ship." You know, like that was their whole thing. They did badger him
to do something that was against his instinct, and he was right. But I think, Gary, you know, I will concede to many of your points, and I think we both love the man, and I love his work. I think
perhaps with some of the stuff he's got a little bit of the Nolan problem sometimes, that he's probably too smart for his own good, and sometimes he's a bit too lofty, and therefore that they lose us a bit along the way. Maybe he's one of those
there's some rare air there. Yeah,
maybe he's a bit like, well, I don't get it. You know, clearly this is obvious, and clearly this works, and you don't get it. You know what I mean? So but yeah, I think we're all, you know, I think the joke is, well, it's a debate. We all basically agree that he's an awesome filmmaker, and it was a bit of fun, really, because, like I say, I remember a time, and I'm sure you do, that if anyone would have said anything negative about Ridley in the 90s, you'd have been hung at the.
Yeah, I would have slapped you. Yeah, I would have slapped you. But, you know, same thing can be said of Hitchcock, you know, and Scorsese and all of that. But it's the sense of how much of a grasp on not visuals, not the physical manufacture of the film, but rather the nose for story. I think he can fall one way or the other sometimes, like with his remake of Robin Hood. You know, you're like, why did you have to make that film? You know, and there are an auteur has to make a film. You know, they have to make it because the film becomes them. It's their thing. You know, Kubrick was exploring the same thing over and over again. It was man versus, you know, his space that he was in, and isolation, and he had a kind of perverse black sense of humor that pervaded all of his work, whereas Ridley was much more like Michael Curtiz. Michael Curtiz could do any genre well, from Robin Hood and Casablanca to you know, anything. But he was not a stylist. So Ridley is a stylist who's a chameleon who occasionally has made amazing landmark films. But I do wonder if he knows the DNA of the film or the formula intrinsically, or if he's just one lucky guy who's swung a lot of times.
Well, maybe we'll understand Robin Hood when he does the director's cut. I don't know.
There is a director's cut.
Is there already?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I own that film.
And it still comes off as a prequel to the real story. But gentlemen, I think that we can round out this discussion. I think we can all agree that Ridley Scott belongs in the Hall of Fame of the greatest directors of all time, but with a tiny asterisk.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure debating you.
Oh, I'm sure we'll do some more of this for sure.
Yeah, pleasure to have you both on, and to have some good, vibrant discussion with two professionals in the industry that both talk from a point of experience and sheer knowledge and skill of the industry, which is sometimes those of us on the outside, we can opine all we want, but it has more weight when it comes from the Tom Konkles and Gary J. Tunnicliffs of the world that has actually lived this world. With that, I would like to thank both of you for your participation. It's been absolutely awesome. Everyone, be sure to check out Tom Konkle's movie tomorrow. Tom, feel free to throw the link up in the description and in the comments, and we will of course also put it in the description for the video. And Gary, you also have some exciting movie news coming in the hopefully not too distant future, and when we're ready to share that, we'll put that in the description too.
I'm actually just going over the deal points right now.
Awesome. We did have some news drop.
You know, we'll see.
We did have some real quick news drop while we were live. it's funny that because somebody brought this up on one of our shows the other day, we're getting a Tiny Toons reboot as well on HBO Max, folks. So there you go.
All those unanswered questions finally will get answered.
Yeah.
Finally, all the loose things. Yeah, I've been feverishly wondering how things would wrap up with that. I'm so glad
what
they
was
brought
old
it back.
is new again, folks. What
Yes.
was old is new again.
Yeah. So many questions. So many questions.
Before we round out completely, we had 2 super chats.
We did.
Elijah Snow said, "Good day, gentlemen. Do you think we'll see a bit of filmmaking renaissance with people having to do more with less budget? Thinking things like Kurosawa or Leone for intelligent work with less." Guys, I want to hear what you have to say about this. Short, 20-second answer. Tom.
Absolutely. When you have a painting, as long as you have a frame around that painting, it forces you to work within it. The worst thing that can happen is when a great artist is surrounded with people who never say no.
Gary, your take.
It's the way it's always been. There's always been, Hollywood movie making is you're either India in the gutter or you're, on the streets of Beverly Hills. I mean, there's always been low budget filmmaking, and there'll always be random successes, and there'll always be high budget bloated crap. I mean, it's just that's the way it'll always be. The model hasn't changed. So yeah, it's exciting. What's really exciting now is that with a cell phone, you can fucking shoot a movie yourself. So yeah, I think it's a great story told well will burst out, and of course. So, but to me, that's the way it's always been. There's just more opportunities now for people to make films on their own than ever.
It's what you think to film. The technology now is the great leveler. The difference between a great film and a good film is what you decide to film. The difference between a good film and a bad film is how badly you film it.
And it's just like I said, Tom, I said, a couple of weeks ago, how many people do you meet in Hollywood, camera crew and grip crew and electric and medics and buffet people, and they say, oh, I want to write a script. I've got great ideas and I never have time. It's like, guess what you just had for the last 6-7 months? So are we going to have all these great scripts dropping in our laps in the next few months? I hope so.
Just remember,
I hope so too. I'm writing one right now. In fact, after this call, from 11 to 4, we're writing, and hopefully, just by sheer odds, one of these will be good.
Of course.
Well, just remember, Jaws was made out of compromise, circumstance, courage, and stupidity.
Yep, I love it.
And fixed by
and it hit at the right time. It was in the right place at the right time too.
Indeed. And the final super chat of today was from Tonister Tree, who says Wes Anderson now too stylized. Personally, I don't think that's too big a problem, but that's my opinion. Anyway, with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone in the chat for watching. We really enjoy that you make us part of your day. Do remember that we are on here live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because YouTube isn't always all that good at sending out.
Yeah, I think we got shadow banned today.
Do make it part of your day. Also, I would again like to say thank you to our distinguished guests. Tom Konkle has a movie out tomorrow, and the hijacker for the day, Gary J.
Always a pleasure to have both you guys on. We love having you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. It was a pleasure sharing this with you and Andre.
Yeah, awesome, my friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's all debating is all in good fun between professionals and people that love film, which is why we are here. And you guys are some of our most favorite guests, so you're always welcome. And it was a blast to have both of you on and to be able to do a little mini reunion of sorts with two people that worked together years ago.
It's terrific to see him. Yeah, it's been a while. You meet so many people on commercials and you spend a day together intensely and then you just go off in all directions. But I remember him because he was extraordinary with this creature that he had created, and I got to do the voice in the room with it, so he was puppeteering with it. It was amazing.
It was fun. It was a fun day.
Good times. Okay, gentlemen, thanks for watching us. Have a great day, evening, or night, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.